Hope everyone is staying warm on this wintry day. And I think we will just jump right in. We are very excited to have with us today Megan Granato, who is the Sustainability and Resilience Manager for the Town of Groton, and Danielle Petretta, who is the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Stamford. They're going to be talking about their roles, what they do in their communities, and both will be giving a little presentation, then we'll have time for some question and discussion at the end. And we may have a third speaker, maybe some technical difficulties. We might have a third speaker joining, but we'll start right now with Danielle. Danielle, take it away.
Morning, everyone. As Kate was saying, I'm the Environmental Sustainability Coordinator in Stamford. And I'm taking the approach that this is a coffee hour, so it's more casual and answering the question, understanding the roles. And I'm thinking that some of the other speakers, maybe you pick 3 places that all approach it differently. But it's my understanding, although I don't have specific experience with this, the administration prior to Mayor Simmons wasn't really interested that much in sustainability issues. So when she was elected last year, actually in 2023, she issued a climate executive order to do things like create a greenhouse gas inventory, create a web page for sustainability. We use sustainable criteria for private projects. So that was kind of lacking, I think, in the administration and the way the departments were set up. So I was hired on a part-time basis. And then there are 2 other people that are relatively new, the same as myself, which have been there about a year and a half, have sustainability in their titles, and that's our sustainable and energy manager, who really, is in charge of procurement and, engineering issues like, the specs of an EV charging station or something like that. And the other person is a facilities and sustainability director. So I came on primarily first to track the progress of the climate executive order, and then I'm doing something. I did the content and the upkeep of the webpage, which is on our City of Stamford site. And some of the other things I've been doing was convening an urban forestry working group, another group for setting sustainable standards in design and construction, especially for public buildings. We had the old ordinance that just aligns with LEED Silver. So we wanted to update that, and in the process of doing that, able to, track solar and EV installation permits for the last 5 years. And we have over 1,000 projects for that for private investment. The greenhouse gas inventory were done. I was able to put together our phase 1 of our climate action plan, which deals with municipal operations primarily, because the other thing that I'm doing is to convene quarterly meetings of climate and sustainability issues with the mayor. And one of the challenges is convincing people, from different departments, what is sustainability. It's not just about protecting and advancing and supporting the environment, but also the economy and equity, all supported by inclusive and responsive government. So this quarterly meeting, we're going to have economic development, public health, and other managers like our DEI director, but we call it ideas. She likes to call it inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. So and then I document those meetings and do the minutes, and able to convene at a high level and work with departmental managers and staff. just going to take a look at my notes. We had the first local climate action summit last year, working on the green fleet policy. I do research, on and briefs on certain topics like EVs, social benefits, things like that. I'm working on a climate and sustainability dashboard to add to that website. So that'll be up soon. So it was attractive because there was a lot of things like that I wanted to do and wanted to be able to work on. So I was hired by the operations director in Stamford, and he is the primary person that gives me tasks and works together. And because I came in at that level, I have access to all the directors and the bureau chiefs and what they're doing within government. So I'm able to work across silos, but that's also a challenge to work across silos. I had to do a lot of relationship building and get over hurdles that I wanted to, amplify people's work, not just poke around in their, business or giving them more work. So I've had a good access to municipal operations and the mayor and our director of policy, and so we all work together, maybe on grants or other events, things of that nature. So because I started fresh, a year and a half ago, I don't have any preconceptions that might be embedded, within city government, like, oh, we tried that, it doesn't work. I think the director of operations has tried to hire people, that aren't afraid to figure out, what they want to do and how to do that. So that's been interesting and an advantage because I feel, I'm self-motivated and want to do certain things, but it's also professional oversight is great because I'm not like micromanaged in the, my day-to-day activities. Like I'll get an assignment and then in 2 weeks, see where it is. So I get assignment and I do it. And then the challenge in the part-time issue is that I have lack of time and resources. That's one of the most personal, frustrating parts of this position because there is so much to do that is required, never mind, the things that we should be doing. So it's been a little slow uptake of some of the tasks. But it's been going well. And those were my main advantages from my role and where it is in city government. And then challenges mainly because it's a capped hourly rate as a part-time position. And so I feel sometimes frustrated and a little stressful trying to get everything done in, maximum 19 hours. And also, a little undersupported without commitment to this position. And I'm happy to talk about anything else that you are interested in.
Thanks, Danielle. That was a great look into what you're doing, what Stamford is doing. I think it'll be really interesting to see where there's differences and where there are overlaps between your work and Megan's in Groton. So Megan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. I put together a few slides. Let me see if I can get them to present.
I also had slides as well.
Danielle, if you want to share your slides with me, I can make sure they get out to the group that registered. Or if you want to click through them, it's up to you. If you feel like you covered most of what was in them, I can share them after the fact.
Okay, I'll send them.
Thanks.
So Kate, you might want to present. It's letting me share, but it's showing them in presenter view. So
sure thing. Just give me 1 second.
Thanks. So while Kate's pulling it up, I'll reintroduce myself. I am Megan Granato. I am the Sustainability and Resilience Manager for the Town of Groton, Connecticut. I've been in this role for about 2.5 years, and I was the first person in this role. And I'll talk in a moment about how my position was created. In terms of background, I'm curious and comparing kind of like how each of us, the three presenters, got to these roles. So my background is chiefly natural resource management. I was a restoration ecologist for a consulting firm in California and actually worked on a large scale solar development for a while, and then spent 8 years with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources working on restoration finance related to Chesapeake Bay restoration initiatives. And through that, got really heavily involved in the state's climate adaptation planning and actually ran a grant program to work with local governments, helping them grapple with the flooding impacts they were experiencing from climate change. So that's a little bit about kind of my career up till now. And Kate, you can go ahead and advance the next slide. My position was created in 2021. So similar to as Danielle was explaining with Stamford, in 2021, the Groton Town Council passed a resolution really committing themselves to becoming leaders on climate change and making sure that climate change considerations are integrated across municipal function. And that resolution also created my position. I filled that position in August of 2022. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Looks like the formatting got a little wonky. But I pulled out kind of like the chief responsibilities associated with my position. And it's probably a lot of stuff that you would expect to see. One of the main responsibilities I was given when I took this job was developing the town's first climate plan. So although there's definitely been people working for Groton way before me that works on climate change issues, we don't have one plan to kind of create that vision and set the roadmap. And so that's something that we're working on. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But then implementing that plan, developing the projects and the policies needed to address climate change risks. Enhancing strategic partnerships, both internally and externally, is really important. So that's, similar to, as Danielle was saying, working across municipal departments, as well as with external stakeholders. We're really lucky that we have UConn Avery Point here, nonprofits, the school system, and other educational organizations. I kind of joke that in my first year in this job, my number one function was to talk to anyone who would talk with me. Because I'm not from Groton. I'm from Connecticut, but a different part. And so I took it really seriously that I needed to build the community of partners I'd be working on all these initiatives with, and have continued to do that over my time in this position. We are working on integrating sustainability into municipal operations. And so later I'll talk about capital planning review. I spend a lot of time writing grants, going after grant proposals, partnering on grant proposals, writing a letter of support for grant proposals to try to get additional funding to help supplement our efforts. And of course, tracking the state of the science, where we are with climate as it is in federal, state, and local laws and regulations, and preparing regular communications. So again, similar with Danielle, I'm routinely presenting to our town council. I am using social media to try to get information out. We're trying to really expand the way in which we talk with the public and get public input into our programs. And so that, kind of spans a lot of different communication approaches. That's something that I spend a lot of my time on. And then I also manage our certification in the Sustainable Connecticut program. We're really excited that we finally made it to silver this year. Next slide. So in terms of where I sit, I am in the town's Office of Planning and Development Services. And like I said, I try to work across all of the departments. Of course, there's some I work with more than others. So really, Parks and Recreation and Public Works are probably the ones that I have most interaction with on a daily basis. But I've worked, I think, with every single other department on one project or another. And I should also say at this point, it's not just me, it's we. We were able to bring on a sustainability and resilience specialist, Alexis Torres, back in September. So I'm really fortunate, and now that I have extra support to help us go after these initiatives. I also include a map because Groton is kind of notoriously tricky. We have a number of areas within town that are essentially political subdivisions, like the City of Groton. And sometimes some of those political subdivisions have their own staff, their own leadership. And so I also work the best I can to be building partnerships with those other entities within town. And I'll give some examples of that in the next couple slides. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry, my text boxes got weird. As I mentioned, one of the main things we're working on is developing the town's first climate plan. And that's going to be helping us determine what our vision is of a resilient Groton and how we get there. We were really fortunate in getting a first round grant from the Deep Climate Resilience Fund. And so we are using that money to cover the portion of our plan that's going to be looking at climate adaptation, or how we're wrangling with climate impacts like flooding and extreme heat. We also have a CIP, a capital improvement project, on the books to give money to help support the climate mitigation portion of our plan. So we are doing both in one to try to streamline communication. And so through that mitigation aspect, we're going to be looking at how we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. We're updating our emissions inventories. We're going to be setting goals. Alexis has been working on energy benchmarking updates and all of that good stuff. So we have the data to feed into those analyses. And then the third part of the tripod, as I like to consider it, is accountability. So from the start, we're thinking about how we're going to be communicating and tracking progress as we start to implement the plan as a way to increase community buy-in. We did hold a community resilience building workshop this past June, which was really exciting and allowed us to get a lot of stakeholders from across the town and region in the room to be talking about this important issue with us. And so the results from that workshop are going to be feeding into the plan development process. Next slide. I was really fortunate when I started this position. The town had just received a grant from the Long Island Sound Futures Fund to develop a resiliency and sustainability plan for downtown Mystic. My fun, I guess, party fact since I took this job is that Mystic is not its own town. Mystic is a village that is shared by both Groton and Stonington across the Mystic River. As a Connecticut native, I had never really thought about it before, and people are always surprised to hear that. So we focused our grant funding on the Groton portion of Mystic and worked with GZA Geoenvironmental to develop this plan. We did a lot of outreach, both in terms of public meetings, but also going door to door and talking to people about flooding and their particular properties and elements of their property that might make it more flood vulnerable. Our plan focused on flood vulnerability, both coastal and precipitation induced, as well as extreme heat. We also did outreach to the local business community, since that's really at the heart of Mystic as well. So our plan was finalized in January, and since then we've been working on implementation. I submitted a proposal on behalf of the town, the City of Groton, and Groton Long Point to the FEMA BRIC, or Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, Direct Technical Assistance Program. And we were accepted in July, and we've started working with FEMA and their contractor to help position us to be able to submit strong proposals to the BRIC funding program. We had an intern through the University of New Hampshire Sustainability Institute with us over the course of last summer to develop a resilience building toolkit specifically for local businesses. And then she did a bunch of outreach in local, in the heart of our local business section in Mystic, letting people know about that toolkit, asking them about their flooding issues and their climate concerns. Our Public Works Department has a CIP focused on one of the streets that's most flood vulnerable and looking at the existing stormwater system to see if there's ways that we can increase its capacity. And then we just applied to the Long Island Sound Resilience Planning Support Program, for a complementary effort that would help us do community engagement to promote the use of green infrastructure and the contributing drainage area to that street. So we have our fingers crossed for that. And I also think that, keeping an eye on what we can be doing as a regional partnership is also really important. We had a number of folks from the Stonington side of Mystic participate in our resiliency plan development process. And so I'm also participating over in Stonington on the project that Circa has going right now through the Resilient Connecticut program over there. Next slide. Just a couple of additional things that we're working on at the moment, because we couldn't wait to start developing the plan in order to start implementing various things. So we kind of have a number of projects all at various stages. We have 2 current Long Island Sound Futures Funds grants. One is focusing on the area in the photo on the top left. That is a portion of River Road where it crosses Haley's Brook. And that flood damage happened back in 2010 when we had a number of days of heavy precipitation. So that project has a dual focus of looking at flood resilience and how we can try to make that crossing stand up stronger against future flooding events. But that area is also a pinch point for fish passage. So Save the Sound had done an assessment and flagged it for us. And so our project is a feasibility analysis to see if we can improve the crossing based on those 2 priorities of fish passage and flood resilience. The top middle photo is permeable pavement. So we have another grant that's helping us institutionalize the use of permeable pavement in how we manage the hardscapes across town. We're going to be looking at the best places, the most feasible places to consider permeable pavement when we need to replace hardscape, for example. And then we're going to actually be working on a co-design process. The contractor we're working with for this is CDM Smith. So our engineers will learn more about how these systems are designed through that process so that hopefully in the future they can actually be designing them in-house. We are going to be doing a regional workshop at the end of this project, so we're really excited about that. And we'll definitely share the information with Sustainable Connecticut. We have 2 education-focused initiatives in the bottom left and the bottom center. Next week on Tuesday is our 2nd annual Youth Climate Summit. I am so excited about this. Right now, we have about 170 students from 8 regional high schools that are signed up to attend. And so fingers crossed that the weather cooperates with us. We're hosting it at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum this year. And the Youth Climate Summit is organized by the youth at the Marine Science Magnet High School. It's their environmental club that spearheads this effort. And so it is a joy to get to work with those students and provide them support as they really build out and then implement their vision for the conference each year. We also have a partnership that we're calling Go or Get Outdoors Groton, which is with Groton Parks and Rec, the Groton Public School System, and Groton Open Space Association to build a nature equity plan for our town to make sure that all youth in Groton have equal access to high quality nature experiences and all the benefits that come with those. We are also doing a Heat Smart campaign with PACE, which is People's Action for Clean Energy, the City of Groton and Groton Utilities, trying to get folks getting HES audits, home energy solutions audits, as a first step towards electrification. And that's been really exciting. We've seen some really good interest and uptick from the outreach that we've been doing. And then this year, for the first time in about 5 years, we did include sustainability and resilience considerations as part of our capital, capital improvement project or capital improvement plan template. So we had that in the past. It didn't work so well because there wasn't a staff person to really help kind of oversee and be able to work with the department directors. So we're doing it as a pilot basis again this year. Ask each of the directors to make comments about their project and how it would help or potentially hinder sustainability initiatives at the town basis. So that's something that we're going to continue to modify our approach, but we were excited to get to bring back in this year. And with that, next slide It's just my contact information. We're on Instagram. We try to push out a lot of like timely updates that way. So we're at Resilient Groton. And with that, thanks so much for inviting me to participate today.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was great to hear about your work, see the really wide range of sustainability and resilience projects that are happening in Groton. And now I'm going to hand it off to our third speaker. We have Cecelia Drayton, who is the Director of Sustainability for the City of Hartford. Cecelia, I will let you take it away from here. Cecelia, are you having Zoom trouble? Looks like maybe. While she's getting hooked up, maybe we have some questions already in the chat. So Susan asked, I'd be interested in asking how much has been saved by sustainability efforts if that's been measured. Susan, I'm guessing you mean financial savings, but feel free to clarify if I'm misinterpreting your question. Yeah, Megan or Danielle, if you have any insights into that.
Yeah, I would say we've not focused on that so much yet. We talk a lot about the amount of grant money we've brought in to supplement our efforts, but with our climate plan development process, especially on the energy mitigation side, there will be an economic analysis portion of that in terms of cost savings by, pursuing solar, et cetera, et cetera. And the Deep Climate Resilience Fund requires us to do essentially like a match funding assessment. And so that, again, will help solidify us considering all the economic impacts of these decisions we could make as a town in terms of how we manage our municipal buildings and our fleet and all of those other sort of things. So yeah, we will be generating a better idea of the amount of money that we could be saving by going those different routes.
And that on like a case by case basis. For instance, we had a grant to install 20 EV chargers at the government center, where there was some analysis done. That's not really going to cost us citywide that much, but we're having trouble getting approval by our boards who are mostly, dollar focused and not sustainable oriented. So for individual projects, we usually do a cost benefit analysis. So we have some ammunition to present to the boards, but sometimes the savings don't come up until towards the end of a life cycle of a project. So we need to still get approval by the boards to appropriate the funds initially. So that's been something that everyone is working on. Also track how much grant money, we get about 40 million last year in sustainable and resilience projects. So sometimes, we'll have some kind of analysis like how much a heat pump costs versus just staying everything business as usual.
Thank you both. We have another question from Catherine, who is interested in how municipal climate plans might dovetail with your POCDs.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's very timely for us because as we are working on developing the first town climate plan, we are also updating our POCD. And so we're trying to dovetail the efforts, to use your exact words, the most that we can, especially in terms of public engagement and outreach. Sustainability has been an element woven through our POCD previously. So we're kind of already in a good spot in terms of our last POCD that was approved in 2016 had a lot of resilience elements in it. I think honestly, the challenge that we have is we have a number of folks who are really vocal in terms of participating in these processes, who want to see a lot of detail about climate. And so because the POCD is what they're used to, there's a lot of emphasis on trying to get a lot of really heavy climate work in the POCD, whereas maybe, like we keep suggesting, it's going to be more appropriate in the climate plan, but that we need to make that cross connection really clear. So we're in that process of doing a little bit of a balancing act of like exactly how we do that cross referencing to make sure that I don't think there's going to be an issue that the plans won't be consistent, but like striking the right tone in each of the plans, and making sure that, again, they kind of make sense as a grouping of major planning documents.
We are also working on our master plan update. So it'll be 2025 to 2035. And what we've done is to make 6 focus areas, one of which is sustainability and resilience, but then also mobility, infrastructure, diversity, economic development. So each focus area has a technical lead within, city government. So I am working on the section for sustainability. I mean, I'm not writing this myself. We have a consultant doing everything. But we have like an open house tonight from 4 to 6 at a church to get input from residents. And so again, the challenge even in this process is, saying that sustainability isn't just environmental issues, that really should be woven throughout. But at least it's, a separate but integrated focus area. And the goals there that are being set are not specific or time oriented. And we also have not done that, committed to like carbon neutral by 2050 or even something by 2030. So that's the thing I'm looking for to do this year.
Great, thank you. We have another climate plan question from Greg. How will your climate plans change as long-term climate forecasts are changing? Is there any schedule for, I know POCDs are on the 10-year cycle. Do your municipal climate plans have any timeline for reevaluation and update?
We don't have anything like that on the books right now, but besides our climate action plan that I give you all the link to, saying that we want to do these measurements of certain indicators in different departments.
Yeah, when we develop our climate plan, we will have a schedule for updating it. We are going to be looking at projections, mostly focusing at 2050. But interestingly, thinking back of the process we used for the Downtown Mystic Focus project, we focus on the smaller magnitude storm, like the 10-year storm, in terms of immediate recommendations, because we've been seeing more flooding from those kind of like not big storms, but more common kind of larger storms. And the things that we can do about it are more feasible. But we included language in there about the fact that this is going to be an iterative process, and things that might not seem palatable today in terms of larger infrastructure changes might be more palatable in the future. And so we are going to be, again, like evaluating as time goes on and revisiting this topic constantly, especially as conditions change, as projections change, and be continuing to engage people on next steps based on the fact that it, in some ways is a little bit of a moving target.
Sense. Just a quick, while our potential third speaker, Cecelia, if you get things sorted out, just give a shout and we'll pause for you to present. But until then, we'll just keep taking some questions. We got a lot of great ones in the chat. So the next question from Mira, how has your work changed since the new federal administration has taken office?
We're like frantically trying to grab as much of our IRA funds as possible before they may get, intercepted. So we had some unspent money there. The other thing is going after grants that have already been dispersed to nonprofits, like the Municipal Investment Fund through ICLEI and the Coalition for Green Banks, and then also the Thriving Communities Grant that has already been dispersed to the Northeast Community Organization. I forget what their letters stand for. But, if they've already been dispersed or you have a contract, we think that it will be hard to claw back those funds, but, who knows what's going to be in the future.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we're all grappling with the same amount of uncertainty. We have some funds that we were waiting to get back on a reimbursement basis that there's been no response from that office anymore. And so we definitely have some immediate impacts. We have other federal grants that we've been told to continue moving forward with until we hear updates. So we spent kind of a week trying to figure out what was going to be our approach when a lot of the initial freeze came out. We've decided to just continue moving forward, business as usual. If grant programs are still open, we're going to continue to go after them, just knowing that it might be a different road. Trying to just kind of keep our eye on the prize and do what we can, given the fact that it's a really, constantly changing and evolving situation.
And we're operating, in a similar way, just to keep moving forward. I mean, we've been here before, where the federal government wasn't supportive of, climate or sustainability initiatives, and the cities still, go forward with what they want to do in their own locations. So, that's what we're going to do. We'll go through C40 and the Climate Mayors Organization, and we're not changing our approach to things. I felt like, I was just going to say one of the specific things that Megan was talking about. We also have like switching our street lights to LEDs on a reimbursement program, and it's been the same thing. Very sad.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's what everyone's feeling. It's hard to know what exactly to expect. So yeah, thank you for the answer to that question. The next question we have is from Beth. What are you finding is the best way to engage residents on sustainability topics? Are some topics easier to get traction among your commissions and government groups?
It's a great question. I don't know that I could point to one best way. I think that we're trying a lot of new and different things. And so we're still kind of figuring out what works well and what doesn't. We still do some of the traditional public meetings, but we're trying to diversify and go out to more community groups. And the work with the school system is something that, we're really pushing because we know that youth have been underrepresented in these discussions. We definitely try to focus on the topics at hand. Downtown Mystic, we asked people what their experience was with flooding there. And, you can never make everyone happy. And everyone has a different tolerance and threshold for risk, which is always really interesting to consider. Some people in Mystic are really worried about climate change. And some people are like, yeah, if you live here, you have to be okay with water. And there's water all around. And of course there is. So we're really fortunate. Groton has a really staunch community of climate change advocates and supporters. I think the secondary challenge to that, though, is that everyone has different perspectives of what priorities should be. And so we're constantly wading through that because, to Danielle's point, even though we have now 2 staff and really supportive departments across the municipality, there's only so much that we can do. And so we have to be prioritizing how we're spending our time in our initiatives, and even geographically across town, that becomes an issue. So I guess a little bit TBD in terms of best way to engage residents. But we're definitely trying a couple of different approaches to just be more present in the community, and that the whole adage about like meeting people where they are is something that we've really taken to heart.
Thank you both. A question from Jess from Sustainable CT for Danielle about the climate and sustainability dashboard that you're working on. What kind of information do you plan to include in the dashboard?
Looking at average daily temperatures, EV and solar array installation permits, energy consumption of our municipal facilities, air quality monitoring, working on an estimate of our green jobs in Stamford, so we can show that. I'm trying to think, those are, I wanted to start with like maybe 6 things that are easy to understand, just and easy to visually understand. And then after that, we can put more interactive data on the dashboard. And it's also, again, working with the different departments. Like, I want to just use your information that you're already tracking. Like, I don't want you to do extra work. We just want to amplify your work. So another variable is going to be our composting program and how much in pounds we're taking in and diverting from the landfills.
That's great. Sounds like it'll be a really good resource. And then a question from Dawn. Do either of you have advice on the solid waste piece of your municipality's sustainability work and priorities? Solid waste is a big topic for everyone right now. So
Yeah, it sounds like Danielle probably has more than me. Solid waste management is super complex here. Groton has a number of fire districts, and each of the fire districts manages trash collection. So although we have a municipal transfer station, in terms of like enacting change, it's particularly hard based on how many folks are involved in that whole process. We're definitely going to be having conversations through our climate plan development process to see if there's things that we can do. But I've really been impressed by work that I know a number of the communities are doing about separating out organics, composting, and so forth. In the meantime, I will say we're fortunate. Our public works department has a really great set of recycling programs available at the transfer station. We accept a lot of kind of not just typically recycled products. And so that's been something that's been really great to see in action.
I think our sanitation department has been doing a lot of great things in the community, and trying, has a focus on decreasing waste. So that's great to work with people who are already oriented in that way. We have a lot of recycling programs, but programs like the make and take shop, where take it or leave it shop, which is open during the week, and people can bring in their gently used items, and also take away whatever items that they can still use, and things like that promote, and it helps us to advance a circular economy right here in Stamford.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry. I'm Catherine Devaney in the town of West Hartford. I'm the part-time energy specialist in plant and facilities, but I get pulled out a lot to work on other stuff. I'm wondering about when you guys do communications outreach, are you kind of responsible for developing your own channels and listservs or something like that? Or how much support do you get from kind of a centralized town communications or public relations office? This is something we struggle with in West Hartford. You know, many departments and commissions all kind of not developing their own listservs and spinning their wheels and spending a lot of time and resources where we think it might be best centralized. But I'm just wondering how you guys do it.
What we do is frustrating for me because I would rather have be able to update information myself. But there's a person who's in charge of the website and information. So it's slow process of getting information up on our website. You know, I was thinking more should be, you know, dynamic and events and cross-reference with other department events. So it's a little disappointing to not really have public relations specialists to work with directly. Like we have great communication, you know, through the mayor's office, and the webpage is through the mayor's office, but you know, sometimes it's a bureaucracy.
Yeah, we similarly don't have centralized communication or anyone who specializes their role on just that communications piece. The closest we have is our Parks and Rec department does have a community engagement specialist. And so they've been really fantastic having that role because Parks and Rec allows them to stray outside of just Parks and Rec projects as they're able to, which is a huge benefit to the rest of us. We do a lot of, you know, we develop all our own communication, and then because we're all in the same boat across the different departments, we just cross post like mad. You know, we help support each other's initiatives. You know, economic development will share my Instagram post on their Facebook, and you know, we send something in Parks and Rec because they have 4,000 followers, and you know, like, and just try to amplify the message the best that we can. The town has a Facebook page that has a pretty good following, so we also try to, you know, send things along to the town manager's office for posting there. Something that we've been talking a bit about more is, you know, some of our town councilors have offered to post things on other forums within Facebook that are more community-based, where traditionally the admins kind of shied away from having town staff post kind of like staff business there. The counselors have been really great about using their position to provide updates through those forums that do have a lot of interest and participation. But yeah, it's a lot of just kind of, you know, we make our own thing and then we try to share it as broadly as we can.
Thanks.
Thank you both. Back to some chat questions. Jody has asked, can either of you elaborate on the project analysis methodology, tools, or processes you use when assessing the impact and prioritization for sustainability, and how much that factors into the decision to implement a project or not?
We don't have criteria set in place to give more weight to a project if it's more sustainable. But that's something that is on the to-do list, to set up some kind of green budgeting and sustainable procurement, and try to adjust the criteria and weight it to how sustainable something is. The other thing I wanted to mention, we also have something called the Stamford Sustainable Scorecard. And so that's for private developers when they want to create a building, multifamily or office, whatever. They have to submit a scorecard, and the higher you, there's like 8 categories, and say the more you recycle your construction materials, or the more you have bike storage or something like that, you get more points. And then you take that, the points correspond to a letter grade. And then people have to post it conspicuously somewhere in their, first floor. So, but there's no punitive fees or something if you don't get a certain grade, but it's something that we're working on to expand, but it is part of the zoning resolution. So it does have to be complied with.
Yeah, similarly, we don't have a set process. I really love that scorecard idea. That's cool. Because my position, I guess I can still say, is sort of fairly new, 2 years in, a lot of my work initially was to take items that were already in motion and see how I could propel them further. So the Learning Lots grant that we have that focuses on permeable pavement was a direct result of the fact that the town used a portion of its ARPA money to purchase a vacuum truck for permeable pavement. So I tried to prioritize things that I knew would be aligned with initiatives going on in the town already, or would strategically build out partnerships that I knew would really be important in our climate work moving forward. Not to continue to just point to our climate plan, but that is one of the struggles, right? Like there's so much that you can do, and how are you going to be prioritizing things? And I think really getting public input on that through the plan development process is going to be key, and we will use that moving forward to evaluate, of all the things we can do, what are we going to focus our efforts on?
Thank you both. We have someone in the meeting who is on the Volunteer Technical Advisory Committee for Infrastructure for the Stamford 2035 plan. And one of their recommendations is more industrial composting to help reduce solid waste. Thank you for adding that. That's a great idea. Another question from Jody. I think this might be our last one because we're almost at time. Jody asks if anyone is using a community engagement management tool like Granato, public input, or something else to increase public engagement.
We have a program called Greater Groton. It's a website. The company that backs it was Bang the Table, and then they changed their name, and I don't remember what the new name is. I'm sorry. So that's a website that we use. It's project-based. So essentially, every time we have a new initiative, we create its own subpage on Greater Groton. And the entire point is to provide timely updates out to the community and also ask for community input through really quick and easy ways. Quick polls, surveys, things of that nature. And that's been huge. It's been really helpful to have a separate way that we can be pushing out updates and then also getting that feedback back from the community.
Who manages that for the town? The town manager's office, or?
And no, it was actually spearheaded through my department, Office of Planning and Development Services. So I would say, manage the page, but then other departments are able to also create their own subpages and participate in the use of that program.
All right, great. I'll say I live in New Haven, and there have been a couple of times that the city has used interactive maps as an engagement tool as part of our current comprehensive planning process coming up. Those have been very popular. It seems like a lot of people find that a fun way to give feedback. There was someone kept posting comments, maybe it was multiple people, but comments about different lots that would be a good site for a public pool. So that was kind of a funny, quirky way to see that engagement play out. Someone was really enthusiastic about public pool siting. Since we are wrapping up, I just want to make one plug for the Sustainable CT program and related to all the great work that Danielle and Megan have been talking about. If your municipality has someone doing this type of work in a similar role, you might be eligible for certification points under Action 13.1, which is the sort of create your own innovative sustainability action. Having a role like this isn't reflected elsewhere in the roadmap, but obviously can do a lot of great work in a community. So just want to make sure everyone here is aware of that. And if we have a few minutes left, and I see one last question from Jean. So Jean, this will finish us up. Seems like switching to LED lighting has been very popular. Do you know of, in your municipal facilities, installation of smart LEDs that dim or turn off when there's no motion sensor detection or spaces aren't being used?
I don't.
Okay, good. It's a good idea though.
So those are all things that, it helps with decarbonization of our buildings. So we are looking to use the smart LEDs in schools, in our office buildings, in other areas. So definitely daylighting helps.
Seems a pity though to have those street lights on all night long when no one is there to benefit from them, and there's no vehicles on the street. It's hours and hours of power wasted.
Maybe a next step for energy improvements. I think, yeah, so that'll be the end of today's coffee hour. Thank you so much, Megan and Danielle, for joining and for sharing about your work. Really great to hear about what you're doing, see where there's similarities, where there are differences. Thank you all so much for joining today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see you at the next coffee hour.
Hey, thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks all.
you. Take care.
Bye.